Hey everyone, Jared here, and welcome to my vlog of the Talking Pictures TV Festival of Film in October of 2025. So yes, I'm currently at the place that I'm going to be staying at over the weekend. I've just arrived here, and yeah, just really looking forward to this show. It's going to be at the Hebden Bridge Picture House, which I really enjoyed going there last year. This place that I'm staying at the moment, this is different from the place that I was staying at last year. But this place seems really nice actually, and this place I'm staying is actually closer to the picture house than the apartment that I was staying in last year, so that's cool. So yeah, and yeah, I've just done my video going over the guests who are going to be there. They've got a lot of cool guests and acts there. As for the ones that I think I'm most looking forward to, some of the returning people who I've seen before, I'll look forward to seeing them again. As for some people who I haven't seen before, I'll look forward to seeing the carry-on actresses that they've got, Anita Harris and Amanda Barry. I also really look forward to seeing the Goon Show Preservation Society, and also the Norman Wisdom impersonator called Glenn Ford. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to this show, and I hope you guys enjoy the rest of this vlog. So this was at the entrance of the theatre, and it's basically listing a bunch of things that being shown there, and it gives the age rating for each of the things. And for the Talking Pictures show, it says that it's rated PG. Now, I don't know about you, but something tells me that that's an unofficial rating. I mean, I don't know about you, but I kind of doubt that the people from the BBFC have actually watched the show in advance and have given a rating to it. You know what I mean?
Yes, because it's not kind of loyal material. Things that were lost.
So here we have Mike Reed and Sherry Hewson on stage. And one thing I would like to mention is I knew that Caroline Munro wasn't going to be there this time, and she's a regular at these shows. And I knew that Sherry Hewson was going to be there, as she was there at Hebden Bridge last year. But what I didn't know was that Sherry was going to be sort of filling in for Caroline, because usually at these shows they have Mike Reed and Caroline Munro as the two main hosts. But this time they had Mike and Sherry as the two main hosts, which was pretty nice. I enjoyed the two of them together. At two of the other shows that I've been to before, they've had Madeline Smith filling in for Caroline. So, Sherry's doing it now, filling in for her. Here are some pictures of Anita Harris. This is when she performed some songs, and I'll say, I mainly knew her from the two Carry On movies that she was in, and also a documentary series which I'll talk about a bit more later, which I'll talk about in a bit. But yeah, she had a singing career as well, which I wasn't as familiar with, but I have to say I do remember actually quite enjoying the songs. I remember quite enjoying her singing, on the day. So yeah, that was nice. And yeah, I also enjoyed the interview when she was interviewed by Mike Reed. And another thing that was nice was seeing her be reunited with Bernie Clifton, because there's a documentary series I mentioned before I've been watching recently. It's called Last Laugh in Vegas, which Anita Harris and Bernie Clifton were both on. It's a series where they gave these older British entertainers a chance to perform in Las Vegas, and they have this guy named Frank Marino sort of train them and help adapt their act for a bit more of an American audience. and specifically a Las Vegas audience. And I've been watching it recently on YouTube. I think it's on there unofficially, but unfortunately I don't know if there is an official way to watch the show at the moment. I started watching it because I've read Bernie Clifton's book, and he talks about the show in the book. And I've really enjoyed watching the show, actually. It's really entertaining. I would definitely recommend it to people who haven't seen it. And yeah, Bernie and Anita talked about it when they were reunited here, and that was really nice. And yeah, Bernie himself was hilarious as usual. Here's me with Anita Harris, and I had a great experience meeting her, I must say. She seemed really nice and friendly. And yeah, I got this autograph from her. It's a picture of her with Sid James in Carry On Doctor, which Sid James has to be my favourite Carry On star. I love Sid James. So I had to pick a picture that had him on it. So yeah, I am very happy to have that autograph in my collection, definitely. Here's Julie Peasgood being interviewed by Mike and Sherry. Now, she's an actress who I wasn't so much familiar with, but I did quite enjoy this interview anyway. And one thing that was interesting they did talk about is apparently Julie, her and Sherry Hewson are actually going to be doing a new series together. I think they said they filmed the pilot. I don't know if they've filmed more, but they said they filmed a pilot for a new series. Not for Talking Pictures, but like a show on like a bigger channel, maybe like BBC or something. So yeah, that was pretty interesting to hear about. Here we have the Nolans being interviewed, and I'll just say this to the YouTuber who watches my videos, Alan Kermit's Ghost. Based on what he said in the comments of my video where I was going over the guests who were going to be at this show, I'll just say, Alan, if you were here, you would be relieved to know that they weren't here to sing, they were just here to be interviewed. But yeah, they didn't come to like properly sing. They didn't have any music to back them up, but because like some people in the audience sort of requested them to sing, they did sort of sing a bit like kind of a cappella. So yeah, but they didn't like have a proper performance. They didn't plan on actually performing songs there. But I did actually quite enjoy this interview, and I enjoyed hearing about their career and all that. One of the audience questions for them was, what was it like working on Filthy Rich and Cat Flap? Because I guess they did a cameo appearance on that show. Now, I'm a big fan of Rick Mail, but Filthy Rich and Cat Flap is a show that I actually haven't seen yet. I'll have to check it out sometime. I know it's not as popular as like some of Rick's other shows, but I have heard some people say it's kind of an underrated show. But yeah, like, and they said they had, good experience working on it, and yeah, they said like, what a shame it is that Rick passed away, which, yeah, I do agree. And this kind of reminded me of last year at Hebden Bridge, when I actually asked a question to Tommy Cannon, what was it like working with Rick Mail? Because Rick actually did appear in a sketch on the Cannon and Ball show. Jimmy Cricket was funny as usual. I have started reading his book, which I bought from him the last time I saw him at one of these shows. Yeah, his book is pretty good as well. It's quite interesting. Now here is Mark Cousins talking about the Goons from the Goon Show. Yeah, he's from the Goon Show Preservation Society, and I do remember he was on an episode of the Footage Detectives before to talk about the Goons. And yeah, this presentation I enjoyed. I enjoyed hearing about it. And also after the presentation, they actually showed an episode from the Telegoons, which was nice because that was the television version of... Because originally the Goon Show was a radio show, a comedy radio show, which starred Peter Sellers, Spike Milligan, Harry Seacombe, and originally Michael Bentine, but then he left. And then the Telegoons was the TV version of it, but it was with puppets, and I think the show is very rare. I don't think it's really been repeated since it originally was broadcast, and I don't think it's officially on DVD. And I think Mark Cousins said, like, I think he was alluding to, like, hopefully Talking Pictures could show it, because he was kind of like, if only there was a TV channel that showed this sort of obscure stuff. So yeah, hopefully Talking Pictures could show the Telegoons someday. That would be cool. And I think he also said the people from the Preservation Society are trying to get the Telegoons released on DVD, which that would be cool if they're able to do that. So yeah, it was cool to see an episode of that, since it's quite rare. And it wasn't bad, the actual show itself. It had some funny moments. Sometimes I think, from stuff I've heard of the Goon Show radio show, I think some of that was maybe funnier. Some things, like, it's kind of funnier if you don't have a visual to it, if you know what I mean. But yeah, the episode of the Telegoons that I saw, it wasn't bad, in my opinion. Now, here is a woman named Cheryl Knight, and she's doing her impersonation of Joyce Grenfell. Joyce Grenfell, yeah. Yeah, she did some, like, speaking in character, and also did some singing. I will say Joyce Grenfell is somebody who I wasn't really familiar with, but from this performance, it seemed like she got into character very well, and she was pretty good at it. I enjoyed hearing her talk, and also, like, hearing her sing and the songs that she performed. Now here are Steve and Peter Finch, who were there to talk about their father, who was the TV writer and producer named John Finch. Now, I will admit, I did make a bit of a mistake in my video going over the guests who were going to be here. I should have read it properly, what it said on the thing that showcased the guests. But they are the sons of the creator of the TV show A Family at War, which I think I have seen a bit of that on Talking Pictures TV. When I did my video going over the guests, I thought they were the sons of an actor named John Finch. Now, I did realise in doing research there was an actor called John Finch, but that's a different person. These two are the sons of the TV and writer and producer John Finch. But yeah, it was nice hearing them talk about their father, and also they did show on the screen behind them. They showed some old interviews with John Finch, which were quite interesting to see as well. So those were all the photos from the first day. So now we'll get onto the photos from day 2. So here we have the Daisy Bells, which they were only there on the second day, but they were sort of filling in for Lola Lamore, who is a regular at these shows. Lola usually sings during the breaks or the intervals, what have you. This time they had the Daisy Bells doing that, but only on the second day. And yet I really enjoyed them. They're basically a tribute to the Andrews Sisters, and they sang a lot of classic songs from the 40s and 50s, and they were very good at singing in a way that very much matched the style of 40s and 50s music. So yeah, really enjoyed them. They were great. Jimmy Cricket was there again, and he was funny, just like usual. As you can see, he was wearing a different outfit and a different colour today. And yeah, I quite like when he played the saxophone there. Here's Amanda Barry being interviewed, and there was kind of an interesting thing that happened here. So basically what they did with, like, the audience questions at this show, it was the same thing that they did at Monmouth, which was for each of the celebrities they had, like, these small books that you could write questions in, and then the questions would later be asked out loud during the interview. But for some reason, somebody stole the book for Amanda Barry, the question book for her, and they stole it on the first day, and then she was there on the second day. So yeah, it was just gone. So instead, on the second day, they brought out, like, a notepad that people could write their questions on for her. So yeah, but I quite enjoyed this interview. The thing was, when this ended, because they were running a bit over time, I think, like, Mike and Sherry, like, were saying, like, now we're getting on to lunch break, but it actually wasn't lunch break after that. Instead, they had the Diana Dawes thing. And at first, with the Diana Dawes thing, I was kind of like, because I wanted to go to lunch, so I was like, oh, it's another thing, can I just go to lunch? I was like that at first, but I actually ended up quite enjoying the Diana Dawes presentation. It was quite interesting, and at least I did get my lunch after that, so yeah. And then after that, I did get to meet Amanda Barry herself. She was wonderful. And I got a signed copy of her book, which was nice. When she wrote my name in the book, originally she put a T instead of a D. It was kind of hard to hear because of like the Daisy Bells singing. But she seemed really nice, yeah. And she got my name. She sort of turned the T into a D, so yeah. I definitely look forward to reading her book. 'Cause, I do like her a lot as Cleopatra in Carry On Cleo. Here is a woman named Deirdre Quemby, and she was doing some stand-up, and then she was interviewed after that. I remember her stand-up being quite funny, and I also remember quite enjoying the interview that she did afterwards. So years ago she won Opportunity Knocks, which basically, from what I've heard, Opportunity Knocks was kind of like the Britain's Got Talent of its time. And she won that when she was, I think they said 24, which is around like the age that I am now. I've just turned 25 recently. So, that's pretty cool that she won that when she was so young. Here I got some pictures of Mark Shortland doing his magic and comedy show, and yeah, he's always entertaining. He's quite funny, and I like a lot of his magic tricks. I like when he gets the audience involved and all that. Here's a guy named Robin Colville who's being interviewed. Now, he is a member of a band called the Grumbleweeds, a comedy band. Now, I had heard of the group before, and now I think I know where I've heard of them. They mentioned like they performed on the Will Tapperson Shunters Social Club. I think they showed a clip of that in his show reel, which I have watched that on Talking Pictures TV. I've really enjoyed watching that. So I must have seen them on that. And he mentioned something in the interview that made me realise I have seen another thing that he was involved with. So I guess back in the day, he used to do an impression of Jimmy Savile, which was before people knew who he really was. But more recently, he did his Jimmy Savile impression for the Netflix documentary called Jimmy Savile, A British Horror Story, which I did watch that a while ago. I guess what they did in the documentary is like they had him reading Jimmy Savile's words while he was doing an impression of him. I did watch the documentary. I don't remember that specifically, but I'm sure it was in... It's not the sort of documentary I'd want to rewatch all the time, obviously, because of the subject matter, but yeah. But that's something he's been involved with that I have seen. But yeah, overall, I did quite enjoy this interview. He was interesting to listen to. Now here is the Norman Wisdom impersonator. This is a guy named Glenn Ford. And he just happened to look a lot like Norman Wisdom, so he became like a professional impersonator of him. And if you've seen like my posts where I've written about my time at this show, I kept it positive. I did say, because I did genuinely enjoy his impersonation of him. I thought he did a good job playing Norman and getting his mannerisms right. And also when he performed some of Norman's songs, that was good as well. It did sound a lot like Norman's singing voice. But one thing I would like to mention is I did feel like it took too long for him to get to the Norman impersonation, because he did do some other material before getting to Norman Wisdom. And I mean, to be fair, like I know he's his own person. Yeah, I know he has more to him than just looking like Norman Wisdom. But the thing is, like, on like the guest list, it said like he's a Norman Wisdom impersonator. So like I assumed his whole act was going to be him doing Norman Wisdom. But also like some of his act like before doing Norman Wisdom, I wasn't sure. Like I wasn't as keen on like his non-Norman Wisdom act, if I'm being honest. But it was also interesting. Before he did the impersonation, he talked about he did actually get to know Norman personally for the last 30 years of his life, which is pretty cool. And so I will give credit to him. That was interesting to hear, and I enjoyed the Norman impersonation, but I wasn't sure about his non-Norman material, if I'm being honest. So I hope you all enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed going to the event. I just mentioned a few more things that I'd like to mention. So they're going to be showing this series on Talking Pictures TV soon called Who Do You Do? And it's basically a show showcasing a bunch of impressionist comedians, hence why it's called Who Do You Do? Because you do impressions of these people. And Karen Kay has appeared on the show, which she's been at 2 Talking Pictures shows I've been to, the 2 that I went to earlier this year. And she was on stage at those. But at this one that I just went to, she was actually in the audience, yeah, which is interesting. Yeah, and at the one in Monmouth, she was there on stage on the first day, but then on the second day, she was a member of the audience. So, and during the interview at Monmouth, they actually mentioned that like she actually enjoys going to these shows as an audience member. Apparently, one time Sarah asked her, "Oh, you should come, be on stage, and talk about your career." And apparently Karen said, "Oh, people won't know who I am." And Sarah was like, "Oh, trust me, they will." So yeah, it is kind of interesting. It's similarly Mansell David, who is also at Monmouth. He did the Arnold Ridley thing. He was on stage on the first day, but then on the second day he was an audience member. And also at the very first Talking Pictures show that I went to, they had these 2 guys, Brian Reynolds and Phil Campbell, who talk about Hammer Horror. They were on stage at that first show that I went to, and there was the St Albans one that I went to earlier this year. Brian Reynolds was there selling Hammer Horror stuff. But I remember another one that I went to. I saw Brian Reynolds in the audience. So yeah, it is kind of interesting that some of the people who get to go on stage also enjoy being an audience member there. So yes, and one other thing I'd like to mention, and this is a big thing, since Sarah actually really likes the pictures that I post. She's the daughter of Noel Cronin, and she runs Talking Pictures TV with him. She actually really likes the photos that I take at these events. And she, on the first day, she actually wished me a happy birthday because it was a few days after my birthday. And on the second day, because she praised my photos so much, she said, like, I should hire you, and she actually said, actually, would you like to do that? And she said, if I had like a part-time job taking pictures for Talking Pictures events, to post on their social media, I could email her about it. And I decided that I am interested in it, so I did send an email about it. So yeah, and she said like we'll talk about it a bit more when it's closer to the next event. She said we'll give it a try at the St Albans one. So they have already used some of my photos that I've taken on the Talking Pictures social media on their Facebook. But having me like do it as like a part-time job, that would be really cool. So hopefully that could happen. Yeah. That would be really cool if that happened, because I always really enjoy going to these shows. So yeah, once again, hope you all enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed the show, and as much as I enjoyed talking about it in this video. Yeah, thanks everyone for watching. My next video will possibly be, I'm thinking of doing a video about my autograph collection, because I know Mike from Movie Edge, he commented on my video of the Telford Comic Con that I went to, and he suggested I could do an autograph collection video. And I thought, yeah, that sounds like a good idea, but I thought I'd wait until this event is over, because I thought I'd probably get some more autographs at this show. So yeah, I'll probably do an autograph collection video soon, so look out for that. Yeah, so hope you're all doing well. Take care, guys. Bye.